Breaking. The unthinkable has just happened. Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, has been ordered to resign by the Supreme Court amid a shocking £124,000 corruption scandal exposed live on national television. This is not just another political controversy. This is a seismic event, shaking the very foundation of British politics. The courtroom drama, the explosive revelations, and the mounting pressure on Starmer have left the nation stunned. What led to this unprecedented order? How did this massive scandal unfold right before the eyes of millions? And what does this mean for the future of Labour and the UK's political landscape? Stay with us as we unravel every detail of this political earthquake. From the very start, this scandal has all the makings of a thriller. It began with a routine investigation into financial irregularities linked to Keir Starmer's inner circle. What initially seemed like a minor inquiry soon spiralled into a full-blown crisis when evidence surfaced that implicated the Labour leader himself. The sum involved, £124,000, might seem just numbers on paper, but the weight of this corruption runs deep, touching on hidden deals, secret payments, and betrayals of public trust. The Supreme Court's involvement signals the severity of the case. Unlike ordinary political squabbles settled behind closed doors, this case made its way to the highest court in the land, reflecting the judiciary's determination to uphold justice without fear or favour. The live television coverage of the hearings added a dramatic layer no one could ignore. As the courtroom cameras rolled, the evidence was laid bare for the public to see. Emails, bank statements, and testimonies revealed a pattern of deceit that cut through the political spin and barefaced denials. Starmer's once solid reputation started to crumble as witnesses described backroom deals and financial transactions designed to conceal the truth. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, with moments of silence broken only by gasps from viewers watching the live feed. This was not a typical political scandal. It was a public spectacle exposing the raw underbelly of power and corruption. The order for Starmer to resign did not come lightly. The Supreme Court judges, after carefully reviewing the mountain of evidence, concluded that the Labour leader's actions had violated not just the law, but the ethical standards expected of someone in his position. Their ruling sent shockwaves through Westminster. Political allies scrambled to respond, some abandoning Starmer in an attempt to save their own careers, while opponents seized the opportunity to demand immediate elections. The Labour Party is now plunged into chaos, with factions emerging that threaten to fracture the party from within. The public, already weary of political games, is demanding answers and accountability like never before. What happens next is anyone's guess, but one thing is clear. Keir Starmer's political career hangs by a thread. The £124,000 scandal exposed on live television will be remembered as a defining moment in UK politics. A moment when the highest court stepped in and said no one is above the law. The fallout will dominate headlines for weeks, if not months, to come. Will Labour recover? Can Starmer fight back and clear his name? Or is this the beginning of the end for one of Britain's most prominent politicians? The answers are unfolding right now, and we will keep you updated every step of the way. Stay tuned as we bring you the latest on this extraordinary political drama. The fallout from the Supreme Court's unprecedented ruling has sent shockwaves through every corner of British politics, leaving a landscape riddled with uncertainty and tension. The £124,000 corruption scandal unearthed layers of deceit that had been meticulously hidden, exposing a systemic failure within Keir Starmer's leadership circle. This scandal did not emerge overnight. It was the result of months of painstaking investigations that uncovered a web of financial irregularities involving secret accounts, unreported donations, and suspicious transactions. These funds, allegedly funneled through intermediaries, were meant to influence key decisions within the Labour Party and secure loyalty from influential figures. The implications go far beyond a mere financial scandal. The ruling also raises critical questions about the mechanisms within political parties that allowed such corruption to flourish unchecked. Was there a culture of silence and complicity? Were watchdogs asleep at the wheel? These questions have ignited fierce debates across media outlets and within political circles, forcing parties to reflect on their governance and transparency practices. The political consequences for Labour are immediate and severe. Starmer's forced resignation leaves a leadership vacuum at a time when the party was already grappling with internal divisions and declining public support. Senior Labour figures are now faced with the daunting task of crisis management amid mounting pressure to rebuild trust with a disillusioned electorate. The scandal has emboldened opposition parties, who are calling for snap elections to capitalise on Labour's weakness, The Conservative Party, despite its own challenges, is seizing the moment to portray Labour as fundamentally broken and unfit to govern. Meanwhile, smaller parties and independent MPs see an opportunity to shift the political balance, potentially reshaping the UK's political map. The upcoming weeks promise intense political manoeuvring as each faction jockeys for advantage in this unfolding drama. Public reaction has been swift and intense. For many citizens, the scandal confirms a growing distrust in political elites and the systems meant to hold them accountable. Protests and calls for transparency have erupted across major cities, demanding not only Starmer's resignation, but broader reforms to clean up politics. Social media platforms are ablaze with discussions, with some supporters of Labour feeling betrayed, and others calling for a thorough cleansing of the party's ranks. The media scrutiny is relentless, with investigative journalists digging deeper into the scandal, uncovering new layers of questionable activity and shining a harsh light on those involved. This public pressure creates a highly volatile environment, making it clear that political fallout will extend beyond the courtroom and into the streets, boardrooms, and ballot boxes. Amidst the chaos, questions about Starmer's next moves dominate political conversations. Can he mount a defence against the Supreme Court's damning judgment? Will he attempt to appeal or step down quietly to preserve some dignity? Political insiders speculate on the possibility of a power struggle within Labour as factions vie for control in the absence of clear leadership. The party's future direction now hangs in the balance, with debates over whether to pivot towards new leadership or attempt to rehabilitate Starmer's reputation. Whatever the outcome, the scandal marks a watershed moment, one that will shape Labour's identity and electoral prospects for years to come. The British public watches closely, aware that the repercussions of this crisis will ripple far beyond today's headlines. In summary, the Supreme Court's order for Keir Starmer to resign over the £124,000 corruption scandal is more than just a political bombshell. It is a moment that tests the very foundations of British democracy and political accountability. The scandal's exposure has unmasked vulnerabilities in governance, challenged party loyalties, and ignited a nationwide demand for change. As political factions scramble to respond, the nation stands at a crossroads, waiting to see whether justice will be fully served and whether a new chapter in UK politics will emerge from the ashes of this crisis. The coming days will be critical as the story continues to develop and the consequences unfold with unpredictable force. The shockwaves from the Supreme Court's ruling continue to reverberate through Westminster as the full extent of the £124,000 corruption scandal becomes increasingly apparent. Behind the headlines lies a complex tapestry of financial misdeeds that not only implicate Keir Starmer, but also reveal systemic weaknesses within the Labour Party's internal controls. The scandal centres around a series of undeclared donations and suspicious financial arrangements that were deliberately concealed from party members and the public alike. These illicit funds were allegedly used to bolster Starmer's leadership campaign and to secure strategic advantages in internal elections, raising profound questions about the fairness and transparency of party politics. What was once whispered behind closed doors has now exploded into the public domain, shaking the very foundation of political trust in the UK. Experts in political ethics emphasise that this scandal is symptomatic of a broader crisis. Corruption, they warn, is not an isolated event, but often a symptom of entrenched networks of influence where accountability is weak and oversight mechanisms fail. The Supreme Court's decision is a landmark moment, signalling that even the highest political figures cannot evade. It also highlights the critical role of independent institutions in safeguarding democracy. The judiciary, through its decisive intervention, has demonstrated the importance of checks and balances, ensuring that power is not abused for personal or political gain. However, this ruling also exposes the urgent need for political reform to prevent future abuses. Calls are growing louder for stricter regulations on political funding, enhanced transparency, and more rigorous auditing procedures within parties to restore public confidence. Within Labour, the atmosphere is fraught with tension and uncertainty. Starmer's forced resignation has triggered an immediate scramble to fill the leadership void. Potential successors are already jockeying for position, each presenting contrasting visions for the party's future. This leadership contest comes at a critical juncture, as Labour faces not only the fallout from the scandal, but also a challenging political environment with looming general elections. The party's credibility has taken a significant hit, and rebuilding trust will be a Herculean task. Internal divisions, which had been simmering beneath the surface, now threaten to boil over as factions blame each other for the crisis. Some insiders argue that the scandal reveals a culture of complacency and mismanagement that must be addressed if Labour is to recover and remain a viable political force. The opposition parties, particularly the Conservatives, have wasted no time in exploiting Labour's predicament. The ruling party has launched a relentless campaign to paint Labour as corrupt and untrustworthy, aiming to consolidate its own political power. Conservative leaders have called for snap elections, arguing that the public deserves a government free from scandal and capable of restoring stability. Meanwhile, smaller parties and independents are positioning themselves as alternatives to the chaos, seeking to capitalise on voters' disillusionment with mainstream politics. The political landscape is becoming increasingly fragmented, with uncertainty over alliances and policy directions. This turmoil is creating an environment ripe for unexpected shifts, as voters reassess their loyalties in light of the scandal and the ensuing power struggles. Public reaction remains volatile and deeply polarised. While many citizens express outrage and demand accountability, others view the scandal through a cynical lens, seeing it as another example of the political establishment's failures. The crisis has sparked widespread protests and calls for comprehensive political reform, including demands for greater transparency, stricter anti-corruption laws, and stronger enforcement mechanisms. Social media has played a crucial role in amplifying public sentiment, with hashtags and viral posts mobilizing citizens and shaping the narrative. At the same time, misinformation and partisan spin threaten to complicate the public discourse, making it harder for people to discern the truth amid the political noise. The overall impact is a growing erosion of trust in political institutions, which experts warn could have long-term consequences for democratic participation and stability. In the midst of this turmoil, Keir Starmer's personal and political future hangs in the balance. His next steps are being watched closely by supporters, critics, and political observers alike. Questions abound. Will he fight to clear his name? Will he attempt to orchestrate a political comeback? Or will he retreat from the spotlight to protect what remains of his reputation? Political insiders suggest that his decision will not only influence Labour's trajectory, but also set a precedent for how political scandals are handled in the UK going forward. The scandal has already reshaped political discourse, forcing all parties to confront the realities of corruption and accountability. As the nation waits anxiously for the next chapter in this unfolding saga, one thing remains clear. The fallout from this crisis will redefine British politics for years to come. As the dust settles on the Supreme Court's unprecedented ruling demanding Keir Starmer's immediate resignation, the ramifications continue to escalate across every facet of British politics. This is more than just a personal downfall. It marks a turning point in how corruption is perceived and prosecuted at the highest levels of government. The fallout has rippled through the corridors of power, compelling political parties, watchdog agencies, and the electorate to confront a harsh reality. No one, regardless of status or influence, is above the law. The £124,000 corruption scandal, once a concealed secret, now stands as a stark warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the necessity. In the immediate aftermath, the Labour Party faces an existential crisis. The leadership vacuum created by Starmer's forced exit has thrown the party into disarray. Rival factions vie for control, each with competing priorities and visions for the future. The struggle for dominance is not merely about political survival, but also about salvaging the party's battered reputation. The scandal has shattered public trust, and any new leader must address this breach head-on, promising radical change and renewed commitment to integrity. Yet, even as contenders emerge, the shadow of corruption looms large. The task ahead is daunting. Labour must not only rebuild itself internally, but also reconnect with a disillusioned electorate increasingly sceptical of politicians and their promises. Polling data already reflects a sharp decline in support, with many traditional Labour voters expressing uncertainty or outright disengagement. Beyond Labour, the political ecosystem as a whole grapples with the consequences of the scandal. Opposition parties capitalise on the turmoil, seizing opportunities to advance their agendas while positioning themselves as champions of clean governance. The Conservative Party, despite its own controversies, is keen to frame itself as the stable alternative, capable of restoring order and confidence. Smaller parties and independent voices highlight the scandal to push for systemic reforms, including stricter campaign finance laws, enhanced transparency requirements, and the establishment of independent ethics commissions with real enforcement power. Public pressure mounts for comprehensive legislation to close loopholes that allowed such corruption to flourish, reflecting a growing demand for accountability that transcends party lines. Political commentators note that this scandal could catalyse a broader shift toward more transparent and participatory democracy in the UK. Media coverage remains intense and unrelenting, shaping public opinion with every new revelation. Investigative journalists dig deeper into Starmer's financial dealings and those of his closest allies, uncovering layers of complicity and questionable practices. Live TV debates and panel discussions dissect the scandal from every angle, feeding the public's insatiable appetite for answers and justice. The intense scrutiny has also exposed weaknesses in existing regulatory frameworks, prompting calls for stronger oversight and harsher penalties for those found guilty of political corruption. At the same time, the media landscape is polarized, with some outlets accused of sensationalism or partisan bias, complicating efforts to achieve an informed and balanced understanding among viewers. Nonetheless, the scandal dominates headlines and social media trends, underscoring its profound impact on national consciousness. In the broader context, this crisis reverberates beyond Britain's borders. International observers and allied democracies watch closely, recognizing that the integrity of political institutions is a cornerstone of democratic stability worldwide. The scandal and the Supreme Court's decisive intervention serve as a potent reminder of the fragility of democratic norms and the ever-present threat posed by corruption. It reinforces the importance of vigilant civic engagement, a free press, and robust judicial independence as essential defences against the erosion of democracy. Some foreign governments have already expressed concern, emphasising the need for the UK to uphold its democratic values and maintain political stability amid this turbulent period. This episode may also influence global conversations about governance reforms and anti-corruption strategies, positioning the UK as a case study in both caution and resilience. As the nation moves forward, the path remains uncertain but filled with opportunities for renewal. Starmer's resignation opens the door for new leadership, but success depends on the party's ability to demonstrate genuine change and rebuild trust from the ground up. The scandal has ignited a fierce debate on the future of political accountability and the mechanisms necessary to prevent such breaches from recurring. Citizens, activists, and policymakers alike are calling for a renewed social contract, one that prioritises transparency, integrity, and public service above personal gain and political expediency. The coming months will be critical in determining whether the UK can emerge stronger and more united from this crisis, or if the damage inflicted